Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you chose to spend some time here. If you like what you're hearing on Girls Talking Life, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play too. Then, every other Monday when a new episode is released, it automatically updates for you, and you don't have to go looking for it. It's December, friends. I hope you're in a really good place as the year winds down. This is Girls Talking Life's last episode for 2019, but we'll be back in January of 2020 with our annual Women's Wellness Series. Do you have Christmas traditions that are no fun? Do you want to give Christmas gifts that create memories instead of just giving stuff? Have you ever felt like you've missed Christmas? If yes is the answer for any of those questions for you, then you're going to love this show. My guest for episode 29 is Krista Gilbert. Krista is a speaker and author of Reclaiming Home, A Family's Guide for Life, Love, and Legacy, co-author of Focus on the Families, Give Them Wings, and the co-host of the Open Door Sisterhood Podcast. Krista is a connector of people and a lover of life stories. She speaks and writes about how to live and love well, designing a life around faith, core values, and priorities. Today, Krista and I are talking about family, traditions, and meaningful gift giving. Krista explains why traditions are more than just fun practices, how they actually help shape our family's identity and instill a sense of belonging in our kids. Krista and I talk about meaningful gift giving, not just giving stuff to give stuff. Krista shares her ideas for experiences, something that builds a memory, and her thoughts for gifts to foster talents or interests, as well as homemade gifts. Krista even shares a story with us about a year when she felt like she had missed the heart of Christmas. She encourages us not to do what she did that year, but to pause and to take the time with our families or even on our own to meditate on the story and put Jesus at the center of our holiday. Here is my conversation with Krista. Krista, thank you so much for being on the show today. I am so excited to talk to you.
Well, I am too, Johanna. It's so great to be here.
You are a mentor of mine, even though you're far away and we haven't gotten to see each other face to face yet. I listened to your show and I've read your book and I got to work with you even for a year.
Which was such a blessing to us. Oh my gosh. Huge blessing to us.
I so enjoyed it and I learned a lot and I just love what you have to say. You're a little farther along with your kids. Your daughter's in college now, so you have some really wonderful insights.
Yeah, experience teaches you a lot. I will say that, right? I mean, The only way through is through. So it does. It really teaches you as you go.
So tell us who you are and just how you spend your days, Krista.
Yeah, so I live in the Pacific Northwest and I have 4 kids and one, as you said, is launched into college and then 3 are at home. And then my husband and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. So that's amazing. I just can't believe it's been that long. And it's interesting because I think, right, marriage is a journey and you learn as you go, just like we were talking about. And it's so great to be able to say that 25 years in, it is truly better than it's ever been. So that is such a gift. So we're trying to focus a little bit on that this year. We're planning a big trip and
good.
And I spend most of my days either podcasting or writing or doing something usually along with the Open Door Sisterhood.
Well, congratulations. That's really exciting. 25 years.
Yeah. Thanks, Johanna.
You kind of focus your message on home and family. Can you just tell me a little bit about your upbringing and why those are so important to you?
I really had an incredible upbringing, and I actually felt badly about that at one point in my life, just feeling like I didn't have this outrageous testimony that, I came from the depths and it was really awful and I had to climb out of that and, God rescued me. Now, God absolutely rescued me, just as he does every soul. I just happened to live in a really amazing family and a lot of extended family. And it was interesting when I finally had this this really a light bulb that went on. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have been a little bit throwing this back in God's face. I mean, this was an absolute, I mean, every good and perfect gift is from him. And when I stopped feeling badly about, because all these people around me had all these broken stories and mine wasn't. And instead of feeling badly about that, I said, okay, God, what do you want me to do with that? Because once that light bulb went on and I said, this is an absolute gift. It's an incredible gift. I mean, I had both sets of grandparents in my town that were very involved in my life. My parents are incredible people. They loved me well. They led me well. They taught me well. What do you want me to do with that? Because this isn't just I didn't deserve this. I didn't do anything. I was literally born into it. And that wasn't anything I did on my own to deserve it. It was a total gift. So God, how do you want me to leverage that gift for the sake of your kingdom and for the sake of others? Because I do believe that the gifts that we're given, we're not meant to just bury them and keep them for ourselves, that actually they die in that state. But if we can go out and use them and help others and give others hope, then that is where our gifts start to multiply. And so really my story is one, I mean, I really did have a very solid foundation. And so a part of that is what gave me such a passion for home and family, because I saw what it did in my life. I saw the kind of security that it gave me, the kind of identity. I mean, I think about how as parents, so much of how we relate to our kids is really how our kids' view of God is shaped, because we are the people that they look to for security and safety and where they belong. And ultimately, we want to look to our Heavenly Father for that, because no human can be that bedrock in our lives. And yet, as parents, we really have been given that role of representing. And so my parents just represented that well. And so because of that, I grew up with a really solid sense of self. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't have hard times and I didn't waver in that, and that there wasn't growth and insecurity. Of course, that's human. But in general, my foundation was so solid because of them. And my view of God was one that was loving. I truly believed God could love me because I experienced that love through my parents. And so I just developed this passion for home and family, and that even in the midst of our crazy culture, we can still develop those bedrock principles. We can lay that foundation in our families that really allows our kids to stand on firm foundation, even when it feels sometimes like culture is crumbling around us and around our children in particular. I mean, I think as parents, we all feel that way, that we feel like our kids are kind of standing, in this place where things are just, on fire around them, because it can feel that way, especially if you have teenagers, it can feel that way, or tweens, but that we really can as parents, lay that strong foundation.
And I think that your strong sense of self, I think that probably is part of what allows you to envelop other people the way that you do and make them feel so welcomed, even outside your family.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. When you are well loved, and research actually shows that, right? I mean, we see that research. I mean, I'll never forget that when I took a psychology course in college, and I learned about that experiment they did in the Russian orphanage, where the children weren't touched, they weren't loved, they were fed, their basic needs were met, but they weren't loved, and some ended up dying, and it just. What it does in us is something that we can't see physically necessarily. We can't feel and touch it, but it's immeasurable. The kind of deep love that we receive from a parent or from others that are close around us, or it could be a mentor or a dear friend. It truly transforms us, and it does something, that is connected to the supernatural, to the eternal in us.
You wrote a sweet book called Reclaiming Home, and in it you have a whole chapter on traditions, and this is what you wrote about them. These rituals communicate a value placed on our people. They create memories and become part of the grand family story being written. When everyone feels a part of that story, unity grows. This births family identity, which is critical in crafting a sense of home and belonging. Krista, I knew traditions were good and fun, but when you break it down to that, that's important.
Right.
Wow.
And that is something that I really try to help others see, is that we don't do traditions just to, I mean, yes, they're fun. And sometimes just doing things for fun is absolutely a worthy goal. And that's totally great. But that traditions actually create family identity. And that family identity creates that belonging, right? There's a connection between those things. And belonging is our deepest human need. I mean, we want to belong. You look at why, I mean, if you're a parent and you look at why your kids are doing things for better or for worse, it is often for the sake of belonging. And so how are we creating things in our homes that create that sense, that same sense of belonging?
And like I said, I knew that they were important, but I don't think I ever put as much thought into them before reading this and even listening to you and your co-host, Alexander Kirkendall, on the Open Door Sisterhood. I don't think I put as much thought and as much importance on why and what and how. So today we're talking all about Christmas and Christmas traditions. So can you tell us about a New Year's Eve tradition that your family does?
Yeah, it's probably my favorite. It really is, because it just can't not be. So we, in the year 2000, we didn't know what was going to happen. The world was going to explode, or, and, as soon as the clock turned midnight, the whole world was going to shut down. And so my dad said, hey, let's go out with a bang. Let's take the last chairlift up at our local ski mountain and let's ski down with flares at midnight. And so you could only take the chair halfway up. And so then we had to hike from the halfway up to the top of the ridge.
Wow.
And we bought these big flares, and everybody, carries their skis up, no poles. And then at the top, we have hot chocolate, and we talk, and we actually let off some fireworks. And then we lit the flares, and at midnight, we skied down because they shut all the lights off on the mountain. And so then we just skied down with the flares. And it was so much fun in the year 2000. And it was so great that we decided that would be our tradition every year, that we would climb to the top and we would ski down with flares. And that's just become a part of who we are and what we do. And what's so great is, growing up, I remember New Year's Eve was always so anticlimactic. I mean, you always thought there has to be something exciting to do, right? Because we're turning a new year. It has to be something amazing and great. And it never was. And I remember if I did get into trouble, it was probably on New Year's Eve, because we were just trying to create something fun. So what I love about this is it gives our kids something exciting to do, something that's really unique and different and a little bit challenging. And so that sparks like, oh, this is a cool thing to do. This is fun. So even as our kids have gotten older, they wouldn't miss it. I mean, this is just what we do as a family, and they wouldn't miss it. And anyone's invited. In fact, hey, any of your podcast listeners, hey, come on, you're totally invited. Like, we literally have an open invitation. We bring extra flares and backpacks. We've had people join us literally in the moment where they're riding up the chair, and we're like, come with us. And they did.
Oh,
so
how sweet.
I mean, anyone can come, any of our kids' friends or any of our friends and strangers. And it's just this really fun thing that we do. And what I love about it is that my dad started it, and that's special. But that now, I mean, here we are, about to celebrate another new year.
Yeah,
and
19 years of this.
Right. We've done it every year. And it's just become a really special tradition for us.
That's a big deal. And I love it. I don't know. I mean, I'm in Ohio, so I'm probably not going to ski up to down a mountain on New Year's Eve. But what are some other smaller, maybe more manageable traditions that we might incorporate into our Christmas?
I think sometimes we think about traditions in a way that's too hard and too big. Like, that tradition started because my dad had an idea, a creative idea, and we just went with it, and then it stuck. And I really do think that's how a lot of traditions start. I mean, when my kids were younger, and we don't do this as much now because we have Friday night football. One of my sons plays football, and so we're usually at the stadium on Friday nights. But when my kids were younger, I brought home pizza on a Friday night, and I actually bought some pop with it, which was a very unique thing because we don't tend to do a lot of I don't know. I think you call it soda. We call it pop out here, but
Nope.
I'm
a pop person.
Okay, pop.
Yeah.
Well, so my kids decided, well, this is great. And we're going to totally make Friday nights pizza and pop night. Even though it just happened one time, they were all about like, hey, we can capitalize on this. Friday nights, pizza and pop night.
It's a tradition.
So that became a tradition. Yeah. And that has been a fun thing. Now, we don't always do it. Traditions have their season. They don't have to be forever and always. Now, our New Year's Eve tradition has stuck and we continue to do that, but not all traditions do. Sometimes traditions are for a season, and that's okay too, because when kids look back on their childhood, they see, okay, this was a tradition. For example, words can be a tradition. Every day when my kids go to school, I say the same thing to them. In fact, just this morning when I dropped my son off, I said, may God's face shine upon you and give you peace. Be blessed and be a blessing. And that's what I say to my kids whenever they walk out the door every morning and when I leave them, no matter what. And so that's a tradition. I think about my daughter. She's in college now, as we said. And one time I asked her, Kenna, what is the best thing that we did as parents? Like when you look back on your childhood and just really wanting her feedback now that she's more of a young adult, like what really stuck? And of course, we've talked about what we didn't do well too and what was not so good. I ask her those questions too. But one of the things that she said was so good. She said, really, the most important thing you did was my night. And what she meant by that is when the kids were younger, every night of the week, or we have 4 kids, so it was usually Monday through Thursday, every kid had a night and they literally only stayed up for another 15 or 20 minutes, but everyone else had to go to bed. And that child got to stay up and do something with my husband or myself. And it often ended up being my husband because he was gone all day and didn't get to spend as much time with them. And so often it was him playing a game with them or just doing something, playing Star Wars, characters, whatever they were into at the time. And she ended up saying that was the most important thing we did as parents. And so I thought that was interesting. I mean, it was literally 15 minutes, one night a week, but it made an impact over time.
And that's so easy.
So easy.
Anybody can do that. No cost associated with it, just a few minutes of your time.
But I know we are talking Christmas, so I don't want to avoid your question of how do we do this over the holidays. But that's just an example of how I think we overcomplicate things and then really it's just simple. And so, how can you just think about the holidays as really an opportunity to maybe you have Italian sodas every Christmas Eve and everybody sits around and drinks their Italian soda and you all sit in front of the Christmas tree with the lights off. Or maybe it's, on New Year's Eve, you're going to have waffles for dinner in your pajamas, and you're going to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Who knows, right? I know a lot of families actually do a Lord of the Rings tradition around Christmas. I'm not sure why it connects with Christmas, but a lot of families do that. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just something that you've done repetitively or that you actually maybe try this year. And then you decide that was really fun. And that kind of happens spontaneously. And so let's do that again. And let's make that a part of our ritual of what we do.
We have something called the 12 Books of Christmas. And I wrap 12 books up and we do not necessarily the 12 days directly leading up to Christmas because that gets a little crazy. But right around there in December, we have these books that are wrapped up and usually they're the same books. I mean, Krista, I add maybe a new book, maybe not. So my daughters are 9 and 12. And I said to them last year, I said, you probably don't want to do this anymore, do you? We don't have to do the book thing anymore. Because some of the books are little board books even. And they said, no, Mom, we want to do that. We have to do that. And I said, okay, I can wrap up some books. And it takes 5 or 10 minutes and we read this book after dinner every night.
That's so great. Have you read The Light of Christmas?
I don't think so.
Okay, you need to add that this year.
Okay.
It is hands down. It's by Richard Paul Evans, and it is hands down my favorite Christmas book. I get teary every year when I read it, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Yeah,
I'll add it to the list. Not associated with Christmas necessarily, but it's usually something we do in the winter. It's called Ice Cream Sundae. We do a blueberry crisp and I serve it with ice cream and the kids can have that as their dinner. and we do it on a Sunday.
So
Something
fun.
else they just love, and it's so easy.
But that is, I mean, it's those little things, the Sundays. I mean, why not? Why not do Sundays?
Right.
And yet we just don't think about it. I think some of the time we just don't remember. And so even if it's helpful, moms, put a reminder in your phone that once a month you're going to do Sundays, and just say, okay, phone every month, remind me that we're doing this. Because sometimes we just don't remember. Days just keep running one into the next, and then we just don't take time to be intentional about those.
That's so true. And you and I actually share a tradition. You do a birthday cake for Jesus. That's a rum cake. And I do a rum cake too.
You do, because Jesus loves rum. That's what I always say, right? I mean, Jesus. So why not? I mean, rum cake, Jesus' birthday, they seem to go together.
My cake doesn't actually surround Jesus, which I'm sorry to say, but my grandma made rum cakes like crazy. That was one of her things. And she always made one for my dad, whose birthday is on New Year's Eve. So when she passed away, I tried to continue the tradition.
Oh, Johanna, that is sweet.
Mine aren't nearly as good as hers.
Really?
Sorry, Dad. They're not, but I'm trying every year. I'm trying again.
But you use her recipe.
I do. Yeah.
That is so great.
Okay. So you said sometimes traditions are just for a season. How do we know when it's time to stop something?
Mm-hmm. I have this really dumb saying, and I fully admit it's so ridiculous, but when it's no fun, it's no fun. And that's so obvious. And it's like, okay, yes, but it really is true that I think sometimes as moms, we have this expectation of how we want things to go. And sometimes we slave drive. I mean, I will never forget the moment I gave up Santa pictures. And now I grew up, my parents had us doing Santa pictures every year. It was a thing. We always did it, the same way. It's a part of a bigger tradition. In my family, we didn't really have a bigger tradition around that. I would just schlep them to the mall. And 3 of my 4 are boys, and literally nothing could be more torturous to them than having to put on a nice sweater and go sit in a mall on Santa's. That just was so torturous for them. They literally hated it. And I will never forget, I literally arrived at the mall, a sweaty mess. Like I was literally sweating. And I just thought, this is no fun. This is no fun. And then I asked myself, does this really matter to me? Because sometimes the answer is yes. And if that's the case, we need to push through. And there are times where, things matter because this matters to me. It matters to mom. Okay, we're going to do it. But it really didn't matter to me. I actually didn't care that much about getting Santa pictures. And so I'm like, why am I doing this? This really is no fun for any of us.
Yeah.
And it's not a part of a larger tradition. I'm just literally going to the mall. So I'm going to give this up. And that was really freeing for me that, it was a season. It was fun when my kids were really little, even the crying pictures of them because they're scared of Santa. I mean, right. Like that was fun. And, but then that ended. And then it was really no longer fun for anybody. And we were totally okay giving that up. And so, how can you even look and say, just do an evaluation process. Why am I doing this? Who is this for? And a lot of times our traditions are for our children, but then they're not enjoying them, because maybe they've outgrown them or maybe their likes have changed. And so, how can we think a little more deeply about who is this for and what purpose is this serving? Because less is more around the holidays because we pack way too much on our plate. Yes. So at this point, here's what I do. I literally ask my kids and my husband and myself, what is one thing, one tradition that you want to do that's important to you? And then we literally, and that's 6, because there's 6 of us. So that's 6. And I put them on the calendar and I make sure those happen. But if nothing else happens, then it's totally fine because I know we've hit on something that's important to every person.
I love that. And I have started that. I'm sure I got the idea from you, but I asked my girls and my husband. We only have 2, so I asked them to maybe name 3 things that they want to do. Mm-hmm. And usually a couple are the same, but that's so good to know that you're hitting on something meaningful for everybody and getting it on the calendar.
And it's surprising. Like sometimes you'll be like, really? That's what's important to you? That's what you want to do?
Yeah.
Okay. But, it really does surprise you sometimes. You think it's the big things and it's really just, something small. Maybe it's sleeping under the Christmas tree.
Hey there, I'm going to interrupt the conversation just for a second to tell you about Pure Haven. Pure Haven is the maker of fresh, safe, personal, and home care products. Their mission is to educate consumers about pure, safe, alternative personal care choices that empower people to live the healthiest lifestyles possible. Their products are 100% free of toxins, guaranteed. I've been using these products for years now, and I love that I can use their products on myself and my kids without worrying about the ingredients. I learned of Pure Haven from my friend Jessica. She was actually a guest all the way back on episode 10, where she shares her story of making the switch to healthier products for her family. So go back and give that episode a listen. In case you're interested, my favorite products are the Dream Cream and the Geranium Lime Body Oil. I love these products and I use them every single day. They also have some really wonderful smelling, beautifully packaged holiday products like the Candy Cane Body Sugar Scrub and the Vanilla Body Butter. These make great gifts and I will not judge you one bit if they end up in your own stocking. Go to purehaven.com/girlstalkinglife to view their whole line and to shop. Now back to my conversation with Krista. So the Christmas holiday revolves all around gift giving. And I love giving gifts, but I really want to make it meaningful and thoughtful to the person that I'm giving it to. What are some ways that we can give some really meaningful gifts?
I have a few ideas. One I would just say is think about experiences. I try and always, especially with my kids or my parents, for example, go to experiences first. My parents really don't need anything at this stage in life. They really don't want anything. They don't want more material things. And so I try and think about what is something they love and what is something we can do with them that builds a memory. And, for my kids too, they really don't need more stuff either. So now they may think they do.
Right,
and
right.
Of course, we do want to get them some of the things they're wanting. But what is a memory that I can make? So what do they love? So for example, I've got teenagers, and so they really love music and they have favorite bands. And so a couple of times I've bought tickets to their favorite band who's maybe never even been to the Northwest before. And I always watch it. I get online and I see like when their favorite people are coming to the Northwest, which doesn't happen very much. And then I'll buy tickets. And one time I pulled my son out of school and it was his Christmas present, but it was early because the concert was in December. But we flew, which is just a little hopper, to Portland. And we flew to Portland. We rented a car. They even upgraded us to a convertible because who drives a convertible in Portland, Oregon, in December? It's like rainy and no one's driving convertibles. But we put the top down and we totally rode around the city with the top down, even though it was freezing, and just had the best time. Went to the concert, and that was such a great memory. Something that far outlasts a material thing. So anyway, that's I guess my first tip would be think about experiences. And then my second would be think about what that person loves and maybe how you can nurture that gift in them. So an example would be a photography class or guitar lessons, or maybe a session like one of my sons is really into guitar right now. He's teaching himself how to play. I could, find someone that he admires and just hire them for 2 hours to come work with them. Maybe it doesn't have to be a regular thing, but how could I nurture a gift that I see in this child? And then maybe that's a camp that you find. Your child's really artistic. And so maybe the nearest city, you look for what's a summer camp that they could do. And then you actually give them for Christmas that camp. That would be such a great gift, a gift that's going to far outlast any material thing that you could give them because they will carry that their entire life, that skill. And then I would say the third thing is like my siblings and I, we actually decided years ago that we were going to do homemade gifts for each other. So every year we do homemade gifts, and it really is meaningful. I mean, there is not a homemade gift that I don't remember that my siblings have given me. And we do that in place of other gifts, so that's the only gift that we give. And they have been so special because people really get creative. Like my sister one time went down to where our childhood home was, and she got wood And then they drilled 3 holes in these pieces of wood and then put candles in them. And then she wrote this thing about, growing up in this beautiful valley where we did, and the trees, because we had 100-year-old cottonwoods down there. And, it's just so meaningful. I mean, it's a piece of wood with candles to anybody who's looking at it. But to me, it represents so much more. It represents our entire childhood. And so that's an example of, just how you can get really creative with something simple, but it means so much to you.
So back to experiences just for a second. I've been thinking my whole family, my husband's family, is going to Gatlinburg next summer to celebrate his parents' 50-year anniversary. So on the experience track, I was thinking for Christmas, I could get everybody tickets to something that we do there together, but that's not until July. So do you feel like giving someone a gift that isn't tangible on Christmas, do you think that that's any kind of a letdown? Like, oh, I have to wait to use this.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think that's so thoughtful, Johanna. I think it's so great that you want to, that's really fun. I think that's just a really great idea. What you could do is you could do something fun connected with whatever it is. So like, let's say that you are, what's an example of something you're looking at? Do you know yet?
Zip lining.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to think, like, how could you even include something like a carabiner with some things on it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It could even be like table talk questions on a carabiner that you can then use at the dinner table. Like you actually do a gift that kind of represents it, but kind of, is just a little bit fun and different.
Right.
And then you put it with the tickets, and then you have something physical with it. But really, that's the main gift. And so you're not spending a ton of money. You're just buying the carabiner and, hooking on the questions or something. But I would just maybe think of something like that. They have something physical at the moment, but then it's really for next summer. I think it's okay. I really do. I think it's special and different.
And it's the gift you can anticipate and then enjoy many months later too. So, okay, great. Thank you.
With kids, it's a little harder, because I do think kids like that immediate, tangible gift, right?
They do.
And so there's a balance, and that is just a part of it, is you have to strike the balance a little bit with your budget and then with how much you're spending on different things. For my one child that I did the concert for, that really was his main gift because we flew and everything. But for him, he's not as gift oriented like that. I would say that's his lowest level love language. So that experience more hit on his love language just because it was quality time. It was serving him, so that hit on more of his love languages. So that might be a good question to ask, is what is this person's love language? And if it is gifts, you really may want to think about, like, how can I do something tangible as well?
Yeah, I love that. That's a really great point. Okay. Any other thoughtful Christmas ideas that you want to share with us?
One year I really felt like I had missed the heart of Christmas. And I remember sitting in front of my Christmas tree on Christmas Eve, and I had tears rolling down my face because I felt like I had done all the things, but I had missed the heart of it. And that was a very sobering moment for me. And I literally said to myself, never again. I am never going to miss Christmas again. And what I mean by that is, there is a wellspring around the holidays because this is Advent. This is the coming of Christ. And we get to revisit that in our hearts and our minds every year. We get to revisit this idea that Christ is coming, and he has come, and he is present tense here with us. And this is a reminder of that. It's a reminder of his coming. And if we miss that, then we really do miss the heart of Christmas. And so my encouragement would be to make room for Advent, make room for having that time, even as a family and also individually, where you can really meditate on the Christmas season, the real Christmas season, the real reason that we celebrate. And I know people say that all the time, the real reason that we celebrate, but I really mean it. Like, even if it's just a few moments every day where you're camping in Luke 2 and you're just really meditating on scripture. That is the heart of Christmas. So how do we not miss that? I do have an Advent book on my website that is for families, and it's just once a week. And you use the candles. You can do the traditional candles where you have the purple and the pink and then the white, or you can just do all white. Honestly, the colors do mean something. So, but if you really are, no, I don't want to do purple and pink candles. Fine, just do all white, but it's the ritual of coming together as a family and talking about the different candles and what they mean, because you've got the hope candle, the love candle, right? You walk through Advent and you focus on a different one each week. And on the ebook, it just kind of gives you an activity to do with your family, discussion points. It gives you scriptures, and it's easy because it's just once a week. I've tried the ones that do something every day.
Yeah.
And literally by day 4, we are miserably behind. And I just thought, I cannot do this. And that's actually when I created it, because personally, I just needed something that was user friendly and that was once a week, and we could do that. So I think that would be my encouragement, is just to make sure that in the Christmas season, you're really taking time out for the heart and the soul places that really is what we long for.
It is. Yeah. And I've used your book, Krista, for the last couple of years with my family. And I do love, it's just once a week. We can make time for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really meaningful.
I'm so glad you've used it. That's so great.
Yeah. Krista, what is next for you? Do you have any plans? Anything coming up?
Oh my gosh. I always have things coming up. Well, we are with the Open Door Sisterhood. We just continue to grow. And I think that's so much a part of, one of the things we talk a lot about is just take that next step, that you don't have to see the whole journey, just take the next step. And really that has been what the sisterhood has been all about, is we're just taking that next step, whatever it is. And I'm continuing to write and speak. I love to speak to groups. So I continue to just take that next step of speaking. And our family, we've got a child graduating this year. Wow. And that's our second who's graduating from high school. And that's a next step for us. And so we're walking in that. We're trying to mark some moments this year with him. We're going to do something special for spring break tailored to him. And then my husband is actually taking him on a medical mission trip with him to Guatemala this year. And, we're just kind of walking through this season with teenagers. And a lot of that is allowing them to lead and also just making sure that I'm available. And, there are seasons of parenting where we feel like, especially when the kids are younger, where you feel like you need a break. And part of your next step is just like creating time for yourself. Yes. But actually in this season, I really feel like part of my next steps has been backing away from other things to make myself extremely available to my children and to really soak up these last couple of years that I have them at home. And so truly, I don't plan hardly anything in the evening unless it's around my kids. And whenever they ask me anything, Mom, can I have this group over? Yes. The answer is just always yes. My answer is yes before it's even out of their mouth. And so we've had groups over here, probably once a week in the entire fall, where we've got some group over here and where I'm just feeding people. So, and that takes time too. Mm-hmm. And so, a part of it is me being planned in my meals and thinking ahead and trying to support even the Young Life teams in our area. And so I have the teams over for dinner and trying to plan ahead so that it's not stressful, but that I can continue pouring out for the people who are impacting my kids and in our community and who are really pouring in, like I can pour into them as they're pouring in to other kids' lives, you know? And so it really is just for me a season of stepping back from other things that aren't essential. And there are some things in my work life with my own writing and speaking and with the sisterhood that is essential, I consider essential. But then stepping back from other things so that I can be really available.
I love that. Creating space My middle schooler has been asking me all week to pick her up from school to swing by Starbucks and get a drink. And that's finally going to happen today.
Yeah. Good for you,
Yeah,
Johanna. That's awesome.
I can do it today. It's going to happen.
Yes. Oh, she's going to be so happy.
She is. At the end of the show, I ask my guests for their favorite 5. What are you reading or wearing or drinking right now that is your favorite?
Okay. Well, I'm going to try and hit on different categories. So the first thing is I am reading a book by Mark Comer. Do you know who he is? John
No.
Mark Comer. He leads Bridgetown Church in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
He is a really incredible pastor. And I listened to him on his podcast, but he has a new book out called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's a quote taken from a conversation he had with John Eldredge, and who was speaking of Dallas Willard. So this is, kind of 3 people removed, but Dallas Willard, who I call kind of the modern C.S. Lewis, even though he's passed away, but he was more contemporary. He was a theologian. And he said that to John Eldredge when he asked, what is the one thing I need to do in my life? And of all the things he said, you need to ruthlessly eliminate hurry. And it's a concept that you really don't think of, but it's pretty profound when he starts breaking it down of how that impacts us and our souls and our spiritual life and our relationships. And so I would highly recommend that book. It's fantastic. And he's fantastic. So he's got a podcast also that talks about the book as one of their sermons. And so you could even just go and listen to the sermon. So that's one. Oh, okay. Have you seen, Johanna, those key rings that you put your keys on and then you can wear it as a bracelet?
No.
You haven't?
I have not seen this.
I was given this by actually one of an Open Door sister, and I am insanely in love with this dumb thing. I mean, it's like the littlest thing, but I love it because I can just put my keys on my wrist and I don't lose them. And even in my purse, when I go to grab my keys, you're always like hunting for your keys everywhere.
Yeah, it's a big ring that you can just...
It's a big ring. Yeah. And so literally every time I go to my purse, I just grab the ring and out come my keys. I mean, I am telling you, I'm obsessed. I've ordered them for Christmas gifts. So hopefully no one's listening that's going to receive one. But like literally, I love this little object. So
is this a certain company or do lots of people make them?
Lots of people make them now. They've copycatted, but there is a certain company. It was actually in Oprah's favorite things in 2014. And that original company is the one I have. And I would say get the silicone ones. The silicone ones are better than the other ones. But anyway, so that's for sure a favorite thing right now. Have you ever used Kat Von B Everlasting lipstick from Sephora?
I have not.
Okay. Well, it's a favorite. I like long lasting lipstick, like long wear, because it doesn't come off. And the color that I love that they have, and it literally goes with everything, is called Lolita.
Okay.
It's fantastic. I mean, and it would be a great holiday color to have for people as well, because it goes with reds, but it doesn't have to go with reds. It can go, I mean, it really is one of those colors. I don't know how it kind of just goes with everything. So that is, and you can get it at Sephora.
And you're a lipstick girl. I mean, you wear
I
lipstick a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know lipstick. There are 2 things I know: hairspray and lipstick. So you can trust me when I talk about those 2 things.
Okay.
You wouldn't know it right now. Listeners can't see, but I'm in a baseball hat. Okay. And then, have you tried Zoya nail polish?
Yes. Okay. I can finally say yes.
How do you like it?
I like it a lot.
It stays on.
It does. And it's a healthier version, right?
Yes. So I switched to Zoya once I realized that our nail beds are really porous. And so what we put on them, it's really not good for us if we have all these, toxic chemicals in the nail polish that we're putting on our nail beds. And so then I switched to Zoya, which is a very clean, they call it organic, but what that just means is that it doesn't have harsh chemicals in it. So, and I like the color Brenna. Do you have a favorite color?
I don't. I actually need to do some nail polish shopping. So
I really like Brenna.
Okay.
It's like a white pink, but it looks pretty white on. And I just like simple colors on my nails. Around the holidays, I'll mix it up, but I actually normally just like a clean whitish pink. And so Brenna is a great one.
That might be a stocking stuffer too.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
Really good one. Okay. Well, it's winter. So I'm going to give my favorite, because this is my fifth thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we on 5? The Canada Santana snow boots. I am in love with them. I love them so much.
You probably need those hiking up the mountain.
Well, and they look cute around town. Like that's what I love about them. They're rugged. I can hike in them, but they're darling. And so you can just wear them all around. So for people, a lot of us who live in colder climates, we need good shoes because it's a real thing that we have snow and ice everywhere we go.
Yes.
And so I love the Canada Santana, and it's a nice break from I love Uggs, but I don't think Uggs have great traction at all. So now I have a pair that they're starting to make them a little more burly, but overall, they're not great, and you totally can slip on the snow and ice. And so I love these Canada Santana because they're fashionable, but they're also functional.
Thank you, Krista, for sharing those. I've gotten some gift ideas and a book to read now. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I love hearing your ideas for traditions and gift giving. And you have been, like I mentioned, just a real important voice for me as I think about how I want my home to be and how I want my family to operate. And just thank you. Thank you for being that.
Oh, Johanna, it is my pleasure. And honestly, I mean, I don't say this falsely. Like, I really feel like all glory to God, because like I told you, it goes back to the beginning of the interview. I was just modeled well. And so if I can help give hope to others, like I really feel like the conduit of that, and I'm just passionate about it, that I just get to share really what I've been given.
And thank you for following that. Thank you for recognizing and then passing it along. I'm so appreciative, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And I'm so proud of you for all you're doing with this podcast. You had a dream and you just kept taking next steps, Johanna, and you have absolutely made it happen. And I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Have a great holiday.
I hope you loved my conversation with Krista. She is just the best. I feel like she's this fun aunt, and I just love hearing about all the practices that she's put into place with her own family. I have purchased The Light of Christmas. It has been added to our 12 Books of Christmas tradition. And I want to know, what traditions are you going to start this year or end this year? Did any creative ideas spark in your head as you listened? I hope so. Everything we talked about, including Krista's favorite 5, can be found on girlstalkinglife.com. You can find more from Krista on her website, kristagilbert.com, and grab her book, Reclaiming Home, or invite her to speak at your event next year. I would love for you to rate and review the show on iTunes or tell a friend about it this week. More women could be encouraged by the stories of my guests because of you. And don't forget, this is Girls Talking Life's last episode for 2019, but we will be back in January of 2020 with our Women's Wellness Series. As we close out this final episode of 2019, I wanted to leave you with this reading from Douglas McKelvey from Every Moment Holy. As we prepare our house for the coming Christmas season, we would also prepare our hearts for the returning Christ. You came once for your people, O Lord, and you will come for us again. Though there was no room at the inn to receive you upon your first arrival, we would prepare you room in our hearts and here in our home, Lord Christ. As we decorate and celebrate, we do so to mark the memory of your redemptive movement into our broken world, O God. Our glittering ornaments and Christmas trees, our festive carols, our sumptuous feasts, by these small tokens we affirm that something amazing has happened in time and space, that God, on a particular night in a particular place, so many years ago, was born to us, an infant king, our Prince of Peace. Our wreaths and ribbons and colored lights, our gift-giving, our parties with friends, these have never been ends in themselves. They are but small ways in which we repeat that sounding joy first proclaimed by angels in the skies near Bethlehem. In view of such great tidings of love announced to us and to all people, how can we not be moved to praise and celebration in this Christmas season? As we decorate our tree and as we feast and laugh and sing together, We are rehearsing our coming joy. We are making ready to receive the one who has already, with open arms, received us. We would prepare you room, here in our hearts and here in our home, Lord Christ. Now we celebrate your first coming, Emmanuel, even as we long for your return. O Prince of Peace, our elder brother, return soon. We miss you so. Amen. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. Thanks for tuning in and have a very Merry Christmas.